There are certain guidelines that we can follow to help us draw the basic human head in correct proportions. Let's try that now. The human head is basically shaped like an egg. The point of the egg is going to serve as the chin. The rounded part of the egg is going to be up at the top of the head, where the brains are. We want your person to look intelligent, so let's use that to our advantage. It takes a couple of tries to get the two sides of the egg to match up. It's okay to stop and erase until you get them a little bit more even. Don't be tempted to erase the whole thing. See what parts you can keep and just tweak it until you get it a way that you might like it. The second guideline is the eye line. The eye line is approximately halfway down the face. We're going to draw this line going across at a slight curve. I skipped a space in the middle because I would have to erase that later anyway for the nose. The next line that we would draw is the nose. We go from the eye line, let's label that, to the chin line, and we're going to take that in half, drawing a light curved line. For the mouth, we're going to go from the nose line this time, and we're going to go about halfway down to the chin again. I realize that this looks like an alien, but that's how we're going to start our drawing, and then we're going to add the features to make it look more human next. So next what we're going to do is start drawing the shape of the eye. The human eye from the front is shaped like a football. The spacing on the eye would be if you could put a third football in the middle. So we'll draw our first football shape, almost like a lemon if you prefer. And then we'll draw a third football, the same size as the other two. And if it can fit in the middle, then we have correctly spaced the eyes apart. I'm going to erase that because we don't need that right now. I'm trying to draw lightly so that the erasing is not so strenuous on the eraser. And we're going to leave the eye shape alone until we get a little bit further. So next we might put in the iris or the colored part of the eye. The colored part of the eye practically touches the top, but it doesn't all the way. Getting these two circles to match can be tricky. Again, use your eraser to only erase the parts that you think need to be touched up, not the whole thing. If the two footballs aren't exactly alike, don't worry. Most people's eyes aren't a perfect match either. Get them as close to matching as you can. The next part of the eye would be the pupil. The pupil sits inside of the iris. This is actually an opening in the eye. It expands or gets larger when we need more light, so in a dark room. And it shrinks or gets smaller in a bright area, like outside. Next, we might put in the tear duct. The tear duct is just a little U-shaped space toward the center of the eye on either side of the nose, but it serves a really important function. When you're drawing, just try not to make it too large. It will look cartoon style if you do. Next, we'll drop in the eyelids. The eyelid is going to follow this curved shape that we had on the original shape of the overall eye. And it's going to come down, not halfway, it's going to be above the pupil. So I'm going to draw it first, and then I'd like you to follow along. Making them match is usually the hardest part. You have sort of a banana or a crescent moon shape because it has a slight curve to it. If you let the eyelid touch on top of the pupil, your person might look sleepy. Without it, they might look like a zombie who's had too much caffeine. So we're shooting for something in the middle. Because we don't have see-through eyelids like a shark or a camel, we can go ahead and erase the iris or colored part of the eye that can now be seen through the eyelid. We'll talk about details like eyelashes and eyebrows later. In the meantime, let's go ahead and address the nose. To start with the nose, I'd like for you to realize that your nose end is actually a ball of cartilage. And so that's a great place to start this drawing, is on that ball of cartilage. We'll be drawing a circle that's a little bit smaller than the iris or colored part of the eye. And it'll set right on the line. So now I realize that our drawing looks a little bit like a clown, but we've just begun. Please trust me as we get through the rest of this nose. The nostrils are a really important part of the nose. Most students tend to make them too large. They're going to be shaped almost like a little hook or a French mustache. What I mean by that is that following the curve that is the ball of cartilage on the end of the nose, a line curves up slightly and then down into a hook. So now I have a question mark or a little hook shape. I'm going to try and do the exact same thing on the other side. The trick here is trying to get the two nostrils to match. When I think I've got that shape pretty symmetrical, I need to actually think about the nose of the person that I'm drawing. Sometimes they have a button nose, and a button nose means that you might see this ridge right up at the top, in which case you can erase the sides of the circle that helped you initially establish the cartilage of the nose. So that's the first tweak or twist that I would add to really make it individual to the person that I'm drawing. The second thing that I'd like for you to consider is that on some people you can see into the nostril and on other people you can't. If you can see into the nostril a little bit, you might want to continue this line where the question mark used to be and go inside of that little hook shape. If you can't see inside the nostril, you can leave that off. A last and very important part of the nose is the bone that makes the nose. Did you realize that this part so far is all cartilage? So if you visualize a skeleton, we have a nose bone that goes up the sides and eventually it reaches up into our brow bone and down around the ocular bone that supports the eyeball. So we're going to take that nostril and we're going to imagine or visualize that that line keeps going. And I'm going to allow my pencil to make contact with the paper. And I can even rough in the eyebrow. On the other side, the same thing is true. I might do a couple practice strokes to sort of visualize or anticipate where I'm going to make the bridge of the nose. And then when I feel ready, I can start drawing the nose bone. It does sort of flare out because we're talking about a bone that protects the eyeball. And then I can add in the eyebrow line. Details can be given to the eyebrow later. It'll be much thicker, more filled in. Just shrinking up how much of the bridge of the nose you really see. The bridge of the nose is called that because that's where your glasses might sit if you're wearing sunglasses. Time for the lips. This mouth line represents where the two lips come together. Lips have 17 muscles. It's an odd number because the first muscle is actually a little dip that hangs down in the center. Let's use that to initiate our drawing of the mouth. We're going to draw sort of a